see. Yeah, I'll turn my phone off just in case.
Okay, I don't think we're going to get an intro music. I think I've failed on that. So, welcome to Beard of Darkness book reviews. And as you may or may not realize, I am not the Beard of Darkness. So the darkness that is parenthood has crept into Matt's world and pulled him away from this panel. So you are stuck with me, DB Rook. I am the Beard of Darkness for the next hour or so. I'm hoping that can satisfy people. So bear with us. Welcome to this panel that is all about the No Happy Endings book anthology. With some fine authors, some fine editors, some fine people. I'm going to go around the room and ask. I know everybody hates this bit, but if you can just introduce yourself, say a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you're here, that would be marvelous. So we'll start on my right with Armanis. Would you prefer that name?
Yes. That is a fine name because reasons. So my name is Armanis. I write fantasy, but for the purposes here, I am the one of the editors and the curators for this anthology of No Happy Endings, and so I had the lovely privilege of working with everyone here, and it was a very wonderful experience. Would I do it again? Probably, but not anytime soon.
Okay, thank you. Ben.
Hi, yes, I'm Ben Sherman. I'm an science fiction and fantasy author, small time still, but I've worked on a few short works, novelettes, novellas, and for this panel, I wrote Path of Vengeance, and it's kind of yeah, I'll talk about it later, but it's nice to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you.
Too. Okay, Kieran. So first of all, I'd like to say, Kieran, it's very nice to see your face. We have communicated more than anyone else on Earth. So nice to actually meet you. Go for it.
Kieran Guaver, I'm the editor of this awesome anthology that we have here that we're talking about. And I also was working on my own stuff, my own stories that I'm going to look into publishing if I can later on.
Excellent stuff. Okay, Adam.
Hi, yes, I wrote Mud in the anthology. I've also published a 6-book series, grimdark war fantasy series through a micro publisher who may or may not be around anymore. So maybe I'll see about getting that republished in the future. But I've got some other writing projects that I'm working on as well.
Excellent stuff. And Ali?
Hi, I'm Ali John. My day job is as an archaeologist, and I moonlight as a fantasy author. Currently 2 books into a big trilogy, and I like to dabble in some grimdark sci-fi now and again.
Excellent. I guess I'm also a contributor as well as masquerading as the Beard of Darkness. So I'm DB Rook. I have got one debut Weird West novel published at the minute, and I submitted The Hand That Feeds to this anthology, and it was an exceptional process, and it left me with a lot of treasures to come away with. So excellent. Right then. So I've got a list of very hastily scrawled questions that I produced in the last half an hour of suddenly finding myself in this seat. So unfortunately, I'm going to send it round again. So I'm going to ask you this question for each of the authors, and by all means, you know, Kieran, if you want to bring in your thoughts, what do you hope readers will get from your story? Because I'm very aware that this is a very specific anthology with a very obvious dark undertone. So I'm just interested to know what you think the reader, having read your story, what will they gain from it? Same order. I'm guessing. Have you actually got a story in there, Amanis?
I do. Yeah. Yes, I do. It was a very unfortunate story. It as far as like the actual tone, just like an overall sense of dread and like helplessness at at the end. And I don't feel like that's really giving any spoilers because the name of the anthology is just one giant spoiler. Like we all know how it's more or less how it's going to end. And, having dealt with some stories and it just seems, kind of like, everyday life, happy endings aren't very realistic. So.
Also, the best stories don't always have them either, too.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like Plague Tale comes to mind.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, spoiler for Plague Tale, but we're here talking happy endings.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, Ben, what are we going to get from your story?
What I want people to feel, I started Path of Vengeance because I wanted to like channel my best Robert E. Howard. And I had a good idea. It was a story that I felt like I was going to make a year or two beforehand, and I actually wrote the first page already. But then I just stopped. And then when I met Armanis, I was like, you know what? I think I already have this page. I know it's exceptionally dark. I think I'll just run with what I already had and see if I can come up with new ideas now. And it took me longer to edit, but like it took me a week to just put it all down. And I was just like, yeah, it was the right time to write it, I think. But I kind of want people to feel that old school sort of like sword and sorcery, grimdark kind of feeling. Yeah, when it comes to stories. So that's, yeah, I hope people get that same sort of thrill like reading Conan or Warhammer Fantasy or, any kind of books like that. So that's for my story, at least.
I mean, having read it, I can attest that, like, now that you mention it, it does have strong Conan Barbarian vibes.
Cool. Thank you. Good to hear, actually.
Good news.
A little bit before I started reading your story and working on your story, Ben,
Yeah.
Let's see, the John Carter's and Mars trilogy, and also some of the old Conan books. And yeah, I definitely see where you got that influence from.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Excellent. So, Kieran, leading on to you, what do you think people are going to get from this anthology?
Well,
If anything.
hopefully the main thing that I would like them to get out of it is just a sense of entertainment that everyone here has brought into it. Like you can tell each one of you guys has the love for what you wrote. Hopefully that, and I want people to see that so that shines through. Even if the book has no happy endings, you can still have a great story, get lost in the mind, get lost in these wonderful worlds. So yeah.
Excellent. I one thing I was going to ask before we move on is this predominantly fantasy? Is it all fantasy? I've never actually asked that question.
I would say no, and I think Ali John can correct me. I think his would probably be closer to science fiction.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Yeah.
And I think that was it. So yes, it is predominantly fantasy, but there is one science fiction. So for Ali John, so that was it was good. It was also a very good read, but predominantly fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go straight to Ali John then. What are we going to get from your story?
I hope that really gets a sense of unease from it. It's
Thanks.
the characters, they think they're in the worst situation, but I don't want to spoil the ending of it. But towards the end, they kind of realize that things could be a lot worse than even kind of the hellish situation they find themselves in.
Nice. And Adam?
I think the best horror is grounded in reality, in politics, in society. I think that when we typically think of grimdark, we're thinking of like the amoral, violent, brutal, war. But I think that it's absolutely possible for like administrations and bureaucracy to be just as cutthroat. So I think that from my story at least, that's the darkness that I wanted to kind of explore.
Nice. There's plenty of that darkness in the world right now. Yeah, excellent. Brilliant stuff. Okay. So I wanted to ask, I mean, this might be a naive question, but I'm honest. How were these authors and the other authors that are in this anthology, how were they recruited? What was the process?
That's a great question. Because a couple of them, and I don't remember who, like emailed me out of the blue. And I have no idea where they got my email from. I assume somewhere from the bowels of Facebook, because I refuse to call it Meta. Mark Zuckerberg will probably sue me at some point. That's fine. And so a couple of them, I had like made a small caption via Canva, which was like a free alternative to do something like that, calling for submissions. This is what I'm looking for. And then here's the email. And I know Kieran from one of our mutual fantasy writing groups. Ben, obviously, I know from Twitter. I also refuse to call it X because that just sounds really, really sketchy. And DB, you and I know each other from the Grimdark Fantasy Writers Group from Facebook.
Yeah.
And we kind of started that conversation, and that led to this. So that's what most of the recruitment was like.
Yeah. Just kind of organic, different groups, different chats.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and beautiful harmony ensued. Nice, excellent. Okay, so I've kind of already touched on something I was going to ask. So I wanted to go around the room again, and I wanted to ask two questions. Do you only write dark, and do you write in multiple genres? I guess same order. Let's go.
All right. I guess before I answer that question, let me answer the one in the chat.
Oh yeah, of course.
Which is like, how do you find places to submit short stories? Usually, trying to Google and find magazines that for the genre is usually the way to go. Like if you're looking for like a more traditional space, I guess there are people. I think we're seeing a little more in the self-published space of putting anthologies together. So if you have one that fits like a particular theme or a particular topic that anthology is going for, you can usually like submit to them. This anthology was paid. Some of them are paid, some of them are not. Some of them are paid via exposure, depending on whatever who is putting the anthology together has resources to do. So I hope that answers that question. And now, do I write specifically dark, and is that all I write, or if I just write fantasy? I would say the vast majority of what I write is dark in some way. As you know, with the exception of one short story I did, which was really just like based on comedy, which is just like based on comedy. There's like no darkness in whatsoever. It was just basically like a random like D&D trip of some elf trying to sell fraudulent life insurance to a group of kobolds, and we called it a day. That was
Nice.
probably up to date one of the cleanest things I've ever written. As far as genre goes, I am unfortunately really hard to pin down, partially because I do a lot of genre bending in a lot of my other books.
Right. Okay. Before we move on, I just wanted to say, obviously, the people who are joining halfway through, I am not the Beard of Darkness, and I'm not the capable, amazing host that he is. So I just want to say hello and thank you to the people coming in. E.L. Montague, always at the Beard of Darkness. I can't not give him some props. Nice to see you too. Sorry that Matt's not here. You're stuck with me. So moving on. So Ben, do you always write dark? Do you write different genres?
I think I pretty much exclusively write either fantasy or science fiction. I don't think I can ever write something that's contemporary without some form of like magic or space travel or something. I will say that, man, it's hard to say if I write, like, I feel like I should call myself a grimdark author, but at the same time, like, it's kind of hard to quantify it. Like, how would I put it? Like, some of the best, like it depends. Like if you call Game of Thrones dark or not, because sometimes people just call it or not high fantasy, but just fantasy. Whereas like George R. R. Martin's back catalog is mostly horror or dark, and so that's why there's a bunch of dark elements in it, even if someone might not call it grimdark. And I feel like that's kind of me. There's always going to be some darkness in it because I'll be real. I like the spice of like you know how dark stories can get, and I like if I'm going to write a story, someone's probably going to lose a head or like get cursed or something, and I just kind of really enjoy that. I like sort of larger than life consequences, really, but at the same time, I don't know if I would like say that all of my stories have you could put in the grimdark genre, but I guess mostly I do write dark. Mostly fantasy too. I have a few sci-fi stuff that I still want to work on, but I guess mostly grimdark fantasy, just from what I grew up reading. So
yeah, I mean, there's the eternal argument about what is grimdark, and I think when I first sort of arrived and started touting my book, I was eager to be a grimdark author, and then I kind of realized that you have to just be whoever you are, put your book out there, and you are what you are. And I do get labeled as a grimdark author because I'm not afraid to go there, but I'm also not someone who's constantly in the gritty, horrendous darkness all the time. I think that would be a pretty dark place to be.
Yeah.
Kieran, so you write as well?
Yeah, I write as well. I see. I don't know. I'm complicated. I wouldn't say complicated, but I do like. I like horror, science fiction, like this whole fantasy thing. All of it is intertwined. If you look at the history of it. So, in addition to liking the genres, I also like the history, learning about the history of the genres too. And my stuff, as for writing my own stuff, I would say, in a way, it's kind of like ominous, where you really can't put one definition of genre on. Because I will switch in one sort from science fiction to horror, and it's, I guess one of my main influences is also comedy. So think like Abbott and Costello. One of my favorite movies, Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein. Classic, funny as hell. But also the horror parts are done beautifully as horror.
Mm.
So kind of like you have myself, I have the humor to balance out the horror.
Absolutely. Just a comment popping up from Mr. Sherman.
Oh, do what?
Are you seeing the comments, Ben?
Yeah,
Oh, no,
Disneyland
no.
Main Street Electrical Parade.
Oh,
Is that you?
What?
for some reason, I can't. Oh, here's the comments. Okay. No, that's not me. Sorry.
I have to say, while we're on this subject, I have in my other life, in my work life, I work with another Ben Sherman. And I was
Really?
quite shocked to see the Ben Sherman name pop up. Yeah.
There's this very famous English like apparel company called Ben Sherman in England
Right.
that's huge. And
Yeah.
when my mom found out about it, and like when I was in middle school, she bought me all this stuff. I still have the wallet actually that has Ben Sherman written on it, and everyone always asks me about. I'm just like, eventually, I was just like, yeah, I got it custom. Of course, I did. When obviously it's just from the company, but yeah.
I heard you like Ben Sherman, so I got you some apparel to Ben Sherman while you
Yeah.
Ben Sherman.
Nice. I'm sure you're not sick of that in any way.
Yeah.
Okay, Adam, are you always in the darkness? Do you write in different genres?
I dabble in different genres. All the stories that I've have managed to publish and get out there are dark fantasy, grimdark, dark fantasy, fantasy with horror, things like that. And I am currently working on a science fiction story that's very comedic because it involves two psychic children trying to save New Jersey. And because they're
Very
psychic,
important.
yeah, it's very important to save New Jersey. It isn't. But there's a lot of fourth wall breaking. I like comedy. I like light-hearted characters. I like hopeful characters. But I think that's what makes the darkness in my writing so stronger, like that much stronger, is because you want to see the characters succeed, but I don't want them to succeed. And so I think that's where my darkness comes from, and I might be a little bit over the top with it. Yes.
Okay, before we move on to Ali John, so question there: have we seen the book? Is there a copy of the book that we can show or not?
I think I've got them in my basement. If you give me like 5 minutes, I will be right back.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do know you can order it like
perfectly into the gap there.
Yeah. You can read it you can read it as an ebook, I believe, right now at least, but the physical copy I think he still just has. So
this is easily the darkest thing I've ever written, the most grimdark.
Oh, really?
I don't normally write in that direction. I do stick to sci-fi and fantasy. And in a way, I like to keep my works kind of grounded in history. Like I will look for episode in history that it's fun to do a readable update of, as it were, like in a different genre, if you know what I mean. But for this one, I was looking at the end of the Second World War, so it's probably the grimmest moment in human history. So it became a very grim story.
Yeah. You said you were an archaeologist?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. My sister also has a degree in archaeology too.
Okay, so there's you prompted another question, another round of questions there. So do forgive me, but I'm just trying to keep going.
Yeah.
What does your work life or your private life, the non-author life, does it bleed into your writing, Ben?
I have arrived.
Hello.
What did I miss?
So there's a fascinating, amazingly constructed question that I've just put out there. But let's see the book first.
Voila. Oh, gee.
Did you
We've
get
got
it?
a cloaking system. It's
I don't think I can get it any closer. Yeah,
It's
probably not.
there it is.
You
So
know
there was
what?
a question. Will it be on audio? You missed that question.
Yeah.
I mean, there can be. I have not secured the licensing for that, so that's kind of up to everyone here.
Right.
Yes. Hell yes. My answer is hell yes.
That'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I can put something in on the back burner to do that,
Nice.
because that was not in our agreement, which I have failed to put in when I secured the licensing for everything else. But yes, there can be one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So
It's in the back of my brain here now.
Yeah. So I was just asking the question whether our work life, our private life, our life other than author life bleeds into our writing or not. Ben was just about to enlighten us with something fantastic.
I would say very rarely. I generally not. I feel like I read and daydream way too much for me to like have to really pull from a lot of real life. And I was a history major in college, so like I pull from history a lot as well. And I don't know. I think once or twice I recall doing that, but like not when it really, not in a huge way. And when I do, it's sort of like maybe the way a character asks a question here or there, but it's not like a huge thing, I wouldn't say. Generally, it's mostly I would pull from media or the books that I've read, or like I guess just ideas when I'm driving around or different stuff like that. But not usually. But I mean, like I think it's impossible not to at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess we all pull from where we pull from, don't we? Whether we know it or not. Yeah.
But yeah, that's just me though.
Kieran.
Well, mostly in just the fact of like the music I like heavy metal. I put lots of heavy metal references in my stuff. I put horror references, and even just stuff I find interesting. I'll put references to in that. But as for actually, like say, taking a situation of where I work and putting it in a story, not really, because I just don't find anything interesting about where I work, or like my personal life is interesting to me because I'm living it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if something really interesting happens that could work in a story, I might pull something from it, but that's pretty much about it.
So before we move on, I'm delighted with El Montague's question there. What do you find frightening? No one has the same trigger.
Me, I don't. I like horror and horror movies because I like to see if anything can scare me. Of all the horror movies and books I've read, they are well done. I enjoy them, but none of them has actually scared me. Like I'll be scared in the moment of something. That's impossible not to be in the moment. But as for overall fear, I don't know what I'm afraid of.
Yeah. So my classic fear is spiders. I've got a real issue with spiders.
Okay.
But for anyone that's read my debut, there's a kind of, for want of a better description, there's a were spider in my story, and I don't know. I just find it's fear is just a kind of it's just an excitement in some way, isn't it? It's either it's not something that you absolutely want to avoid. There's a fascination there. So for me, I dabbled in that scary, horrible feeling of skittery. because I enjoyed writing it as much as hopefully people enjoy reading it.
Right.
Sorry, we're digressing. So, Adam, does your other life bleed into your writing on purpose or not?
A little bit. That's because I have a very specific hobby that kind of forces me to think about death and gore and blood and all that icky stuff. And I think that just translates translates well to writing, especially in the genres that I do. So that's the part that does it for me. I like Kieran. I also love heavy metal music. I love horror movies. So and I love horror stories as well. Um, but aside from the media that I consume, the that hobby of like Japanese swordsmanship, if you're the deeper you get into it, the more you have to think about what you're doing to another person's body with a very, very sharp instrument. So that in that regard, yes, that influences the things that I write.
Is that the hobby, the Japanese swordsman?
Yes,
So
yes, exactly, yes.
Nice. Yeah.
So in terms of, you've got to think this move will, in theory, remove that arm. I've got to know about that.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it's there's also a historical European martial arts group that my sword group gets together with. We fight each other, we take bets, all the money goes to charity, but we're all just a bunch of big sword nerds, thinking about what what this thing is going to do to another person when I hit them in this way.
Nice.
And
Yes.
it's we make lighthearted jokes about it, but it's pretty gritty when you actually stop and think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I bet how it feels when you get hit, or like when you're fighting someone who you either know you can beat or know you can't beat, and then just, I guess, the psychology of that, probably, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like psychological effects that go into it. When you're fighting someone and you're in your armor and they're in their armor, and you're just two impenetrable shells trying to get the better of each other.
Right.
And then it devolves to wrestling and you're just trying to stab each other with knives. It's
It's a family-friendly hobby.
it's a family. Yeah, bring your kids.
Yeah.
Balloons for mom.
Now I got freaking Monty Python running in my head with the Black Knight.
It's
Nice.
exactly like the Black Knight in Holy Grail.
It's just a flesh wound.
Oh yes. Well, I've succeeded in this podcast. We've mentioned Monty Python. Like,
we can all retire happy.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, Ali John, I guess you started this question. It's all your fault.
No, my job feeds into my writing all the time. The big fantasy trilogy, which I'm writing right now, it basically started as me wanting to write about Bronze Age cultures, like early Bronze Age cultures, which you don't see a lot of fantasies kind of set before like Greek Roman times.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just kind of blossomed from there. Like most of the stories I write are based around some kind of historical nugget that I've come across. And also my job, although a lot of the time I spend it reading, I also do geophysics, which involves me just walking up and down fields for 8 hours a day. And when you're doing that, you kind of get into a mode where your legs just carry you and your head just switches off. And in that mode, like, I've just got stories going through my head constantly. So I've got the time to really think about what I want to write when I get home in the evening.
Nice. Yeah.
And you said that your story was science fiction as well? Or
Yeah, there's one in the anthology of science fiction.
okay, so wait, so your story has both Bronze Age stuff and science.
Oh
stuff?
no, sorry. The fantasy trilogy I'm working my way through, kind of when I'm not writing short stories, that is set in the Bronze Age. But the story that's in the anthology, that is sci-fi.
So I work in addiction. I've worked in addiction for many years, and partly, yes, addiction and sort of drug abuse in some shape or form comes into my writing, but also I know a hell of a lot about addiction, and I don't want to bore my readers with too much detail about the subject that I know a lot about in my work life. So I'm kind of a bit two ways about that. Yes, I've brought it in, but I don't want to end up writing a journal about addiction either, because that's my other world. But it's an interesting sort of, that's why I wanted to ask everyone. It's an interesting thought. Like, everyone's got another life that we do to make money, to, you know, to feed our kids, to pay the bills. And some people hate that other life. Some people want to bring it in. So, Manis, last but not least, do you bring in your other life into your stories?
I mean, in a couple ways, but it really depends on what it is I'm writing. The one in which, I mean, I guess kind of, but I don't want to mention what specifically it was, or else I might get sued. But that, like, video games was the more recent one. So some of the games that I play, you know, like I bring in to some of my inspiration. I have a weird, I mean, I call it urban fantasy, but it barely has any magic in it. It's kind of like off to the side from like the main plot line. And that I kind of like took from like my experiences from Boston. So a lot of my personal experience directly gets put into that book. And if there was like another one, like the other short story that was literally just based off of like a random one-shot campaign that I did, or the fun for it, where I just decided, you know what, I'm a wizard. There's a bunch of kobolds. I'm going to use diplomacy, even though I have absolutely no charisma whatsoever. And I rolled a nat 20, and that was like the only thing I knew how to sell on the fly was life insurance. So I just create a random, just like a random spiel, provided a fictitious need to these kobolds, and that's kind of that was kind of the solution that I built around like one of the very short stories I wrote. The short story is literally titled "The Kobolds and the Fraudulent Life Insurance Policy," and you know that's like I you know, again, like like the title of No Happy Endings, the title explains exactly what it's about. So I don't really need to explain it anymore. But I think in a lot of ways, I would say I do a lot of people watching when I'm out in coffee shops. So, you know, their dialogue, I have a tendency to try to like put in the characters to try to make them a little more realistic.
Yeah. That, I have to say, that's something I do a lot of. I notice how people talk, and I think, mental note, people talk like that.
Yeah.
Not like me. It's not me talking. It's that person and that person. They talk in the same way. Put that in the brain. Take it home. Yeah.
Yes, kobolds are one of the many reasons that we need life insurance. Yeah, it's true.
That and owl bears.
Yeah, don't look up the statistics. It's a fact.
Excellent.
Also, can you all see and hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. My power went out, and so now I'm on my phone.
Oh no!
No.
Yeah, so it's kind of dark, but I'm still here at least, so we're good.
So, I was going to ask what the other question I was going to ask about what prompted this specific grimdark anthology. What made you think I want to do an anthology about this grim, no happy endings?
One for like something short, and I knew the topic was going to be niche itself, and a lot of I wouldn't necessarily expect your everyday like run of the mill author having something ready like within that word count size limitation that had an unhappy ending, and in such a way that conveyed a serious amount of dread and or like an emotional response. Like for example, I remember reading Adam Conlon's submission, and like it was great all the way up until like the ending, and then the ending made me want to vomit. And I was like, all right, I have to have this. This is the one. This is what I'm going for. But a lot of it had prompted into like some of the games I've played. Again, I'll talk on and off about like Plague Tale, or and you might even as not as well written as like Baldur's Gate 3 was, depending on how you played, you can get some really messed up endings at the end. And I was kind of like looking for that kind of response, for it to have an ending that is not happy, but also conveys some form of emotional response. That's either A, going to make me upset, or B, make me go see a doctor. And that's what I wanted, and that's kind of that's what I got from almost for just about every single story that's in here.
Yeah.
I just have to say, the Beard of Darkness is in the chat. All hail the Beard of Darkness.
All hail the Beard of
All
Darkness.
hail.
All hail.
Make sure to bring some Lacuna Coil back in.
Nice. So, I mean, the last thing that I wasn't sure whether to ask anyone, but because I know how difficult it is to write a story or a book and then write a synopsis. For me, the writing a synopsis of any work I've done is the most hellish thing on earth.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to ask the question. Give us a rundown of your story. If you're not going to hate me too much for asking that question. What are we going to find in this book? What are these fine people that are going to buy this book? What are they going to find? It's a cruel question. Shall I start? I'll start. I've got a story in this.
I should know who.
Yeah. So my story is very much grimdark fantasy, classic fantasy, dirty dark fantasy with lots of swearing and grim horribleness of
it was beautiful.
A band of mercenary adventurer types down on their luck who, I mean, my story was trying to balance that with some real life modern day ideas. So my adventurer group down on their luck, they're having to submit to the man slightly to get some money, to do well. The world's changing around them and they're left behind a little bit. And they basically go to a massive job interview, which is hopefully I do that well, but it's a dirty, dark mercenary band going to a job interview. And somewhere along the line, somebody, because I don't want to spoil anything, somebody has to pay back their uni fees. That's as good as I can collate that without spoiling anything, without making it sound awful. Next up, go.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go next. Now that the ice has been sufficiently broken by, I mean, it's so hard too because like I know exactly what you're talking about, having read it, and it is still hilarious. It is probably the funniest story that we have in this collection. But like as far as the one I go is mine. It is set in a place called the Land of Dreams, and some swearing a little bit. You've got a mentor, like a mentor relationship. There is a highly questionable marriage or marriage proposal, I should say, that is in the midst of being enacted. So there's a bunch of morally gray characters. It's basically, without really giving much away at the plot, it is about sibling love for each other. And I really can't really say much more. And I think leaving sibling love at the end of it is just going to leave enough vagueness for you to think you know what that's talking about, but it's not actually what it is.
You practiced that. I know you did.
I did
Leave
not.
that out there. Ali John, give us the synopsis of your story.
Okay, letters from the front. A propaganda officer is sent back to his home world to see it liberated from an alien race. He's there to make a short film, kind of ingratiating the off-world troops to the natives. Just show what a good job they're doing. Try and smooth relations between the two. But quickly, within a few days of arriving, he discovers that these off-world troops are probably not the saviors that he's supposed to make them out to be. In fact, they might be worse than the aliens. And I think I'll leave it there before spoiling anything else.
Well, I would like to add, Matt. Sure, you can rent my house. It's for 30 Martian credits. The one thing Ali John didn't mention is that his novella is entirely in epistolary format, where everything else is prose. So if you're looking for something a little bit more unique, that's probably like the first one that you'd want to pick up.
Okay.
So over to Ben, who's conveniently moved himself around the order of the screen, but
Yeah.
we're gonna get it.
It was all according to plan.
I'm in a sufficiently dark place right now. Let me see. A synopsis of Path of Vengeance actually is I would say it's I guess I don't have my notes in front of me now, but it is about a pit fighter and a slave who was attacked by a shadow, he doesn't exactly understand, but somehow the shadow kills his master, and he's able to kill the shadow, sort of like a demon, and he gets it to do not like a villain monologue, but it explains to him like that it comes from the West. And so now that he is freed, he still understands that he was about to be killed. So he wants to essentially go after whoever sent that after him. And the story starts out that he is on the road through the Anusar Wastes, which is essentially the realm of god kings, and but essentially it's a blasted wasteland, and he's going through there with this sort of plucky, very greedy merchant whose life he saved, and they have to essentially go into the bowels of what I would consider like the hellish version of like ancient Egypt and Sumeria put together. And I'm not going to explain the whole plot, but it's essentially trying to find out who tried to kill him with something otherworldly, and how he's going to take vengeance on him. And like it becomes very, very Baroque and I guess Stygian, you could say. But yeah, without spoiling too much, there's some intrigue. There's some definitely a lot of blood, and some sort of eldritch fantasy, I'll say, in the mix.
Nice. Another one, practice the last line of that synopsis. I'll just leave eldritch fantasy out there for everyone. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So, Kieran, so you might have thought you would get away with this question. Give us the synopsis for this entire anthology.
There's what, 6 or 7 stories in this, almost? Honestly, I'm horrible at this in synopsis. Well,
It is the worst thing ever. I
really
agree.
is. Like, how can you sum up something, especially something like this, which is different authors, different stories, different worlds, under one theme? It's hard.
And you've already got a title that kind of nails it.
If I would have to do it, I believe there's 6 stories in here. 6 worlds, 6 stories, no happy ending, and just leave it at that. Simple, direct.
I like it.
You rose to the test. Very good. Excellent. And Adam, last but not least.
Well, I guess if I were to, without any spoilers, and to make it as concise as possible, 2 rival students in a magic school compete to be mentored by a prestigious wizard, and they find out that things aren't exactly what they've been told, and then hilarity ensues.
Yeah.
Like,
And
But
the
not
trip
too
to
much
the
hilarity.
ER.
Yes.
yeah.
There's no ER. There's a sewer.
No. I had to go to the ER after reading it. But...
No. Oh no. No.
So, do we think we've acquitted ourselves well of this anthology? I mean, I'm guessing nobody has anybody on this chat read anybody else's story.
No, I'm looking forward to it.
No, other than in Amana.
Well, thank you for reminding me. I still have to mail a couple of copies out.
Yeah. I want to, but I can't really concentrate reading on a computer or a phone very well. I have to have a physical copy to do it. But I'm excited to. I've been waiting to. So
I have to say, I was on Microsoft Word you can get it to read very basic, weird, crunchy kind of audio.
yeah.
While I was cooking earlier on, I got Microsoft Word to read out my story.
Times, it was the worst of times. 7 years ago.
It was very bizarre, and I occasionally had to kind of remember that it sounds awful for a reason. But I actually thought, I've not read this story for a while. It's pretty good. So hopefully people will enjoy it.
Yeah, I reread mine last night, and I'm like, yeah, I'm satisfied with it. So
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Having read it and underneath the editorial guise of Kieran, I am fairly confident that all these stories are in a good place. Typos, all that's been cleaned up and everything. So if there is one, it's either a mistake with the printer, or at this point, the error should just remain in there. It went through all of the hoops. It has survived.
I think I always come back to the old stormtrooper banging his head in Star Wars. That is a beautiful moment.
True.
In this day and age, that would be sterilized and gone.
Yeah.
But we want to see the stormtrooper bang his head. So if there's mistakes, then so be it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We did everything we possibly could. But I'm happy with how this turned out. I enjoyed doing it. Like I said, I would do it again. Just not anytime soon.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
So, do we have a release date? Do we?
Let me consult the Zon. It is November 12th of this year.
November
So a
12th.
couple months away now.
And we are going to maybe have a conversation about audio. Is that not that I want to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
is that possible?
Yeah, it's possible. It's going to be either something I will either attempt to do it myself because I do have some equipment for it, but I will. I mean, that would just be cheaper for me to do, but ideally, it's probably best to get a professional to do it, who does it for a living. So if everyone's okay with that, I will gladly go on and. Well, thank you, Sina, for joining us on our very, very family-friendly adventure.
This has been going on for 56 minutes, and I've figured out how to make the comments appear.
Oh,
Yes,
Yeah.
we're learning stuff.
A few.
Yeah, so there will be a conversation on audio for sure, and I'll have more details once I hammer those out and how I choose to proceed with that.
Excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're 56 minutes. We're almost at an hour. I don't want to bore anyone to death. This has been Beard of Darkness. This is about the anthology No Happy Endings. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, everyone on this panel, for bearing with me and the stress of me leaping into the host seat. I hope you've had fun. I'm going to call time out. Nice to meet everyone, and let's hope that lots of people read this book.
Yeah, you can pre-order now. It is wide. It's not strictly to Kindle Unlimited. So if you have a Nook or otherwise, like you can get it. It's not exclusive to Amazon.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Always good, because nobody wants to be exclusive to Amazon. Whether we are or not, we don't want to be.
No one wants that. You know?
No.
Nobody wants that. Again, I'm probably going to get sued for saying that, but there we go. Thank you, everyone.
Like 3 or 4 references and lawsuits in just this 1 hour. It's great.
Yeah.
My job here is done. Enjoy the rest of your day, gentlemen. Very nice to meet you all and chat, and hopefully we'll do this again at the next anthology.
Yeah, no, that would be wonderful whenever that happens. Yeah. All right, well,
absolutely.
Thank you so much for hosting us, DB. It's appreciated.
Thank you, DB.
Yeah,
Thank
you very much.
My pleasure.
And Matt, of course.
And Matt, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, he's there in spirit.
All the beards.
All the beard.
All the beards.